Okay, welcome to another episode of the Goalmouth Action Podcast, where we take a look at all the latest goings on at Brighton and Hove Albion and sport in Sussex. I'm Derren Howard, and this week I'm joined by Sussex reporters Sam Morton and Henry Bryant, who cover Brighton and Hove Albion. The Seagulls were held to a goalless draw at home against Wolverhampton Wanderers on Monday night. It was their second consecutive stalemate in the league following their draw against West Ham at the beginning of January. We'll be reflecting on the action against the Wolves before we look ahead to Brighton's trip to Sheffield United in the FA Cup this weekend, before they swiftly travel to Luton in the league next Tuesday. You can read all the stories we're talking about with videos and pictures online at sussexworld.co.uk/sport, and you can check out other great videos on shotstv.com and free channel 276. You may also be watching on Latest TV. So thanks very much for tuning in. So as we mentioned, Brighton were held by Wolves. It's their ninth game unbeaten at home, and for the first time it's their ninth game unbeaten at home, and that's for the first time in the club's top flight history. And they go above Manchester United into seventh place after that game. But Sam, sum that up for us. You were at the Amex Stadium last night. What was the sort of feeling and the mood there?
Yeah, it was a frustrating one for Brighton, really. I think it had all the hallmarks for a really exciting game to begin with. Brighton were definitely looking to get an early goal, as were Wolves, and it looked like it was going to be a really exciting game with end-to-end chances. And then as the first half progressed, Brighton really took control of the ball, dominated possession, but they just struggled to create clear-cut chances, which is unlike this Brighton team, really. And they definitely missed some key players like Karim Matoma, Simon Dingra, both away with their countries. Obviously, Sonny March is still out. Fatty still out. Julian Cesar still out. And I think those players could have made such a difference yesterday, I think. But it was, as I say, it was a frustrating one because they couldn't quite break the deadlock. And whilst the score was 0-0, Wolves were also such a threat, especially Pedro Neto. He was back from injury and he was a real thorn in Brighton's defence. But it's a real positive, I think, that they did manage to keep another clean sheet, as you say, back-to-back clean sheets. And they kind of waited all of 2023 for one clean sheet in the Premier League and then two come at once. So I think De Zerbi and even Jason Steele, I spoke to as well after the game, didn't really want to dwell on the positives as much. They said they weren't really interested in the stats and in the clean sheets. I think De Zerbi said it's something for journalists to worry about, clean sheets, but not for him, because he'd rather win 4-2 than draw 0-0. So definitely a mixed bag in that sense for Brighton. I think they definitely will be frustrated they couldn't get the victory.
Yeah, no, I agree. De Zerbi's he's not a 0-0 manager, is he? That must frustrate him so much. And with that, Henry, did you think it was a point gained, or was that 2 points dropped? And have there been too many draws this season?
Well, if you have a look, then it's been a total of 8 draws in the Premier League so far. In terms of the fact that if this is a point gained or 2 points dropped, I do think it was 2 points dropped. As Sam was saying, this was and had all the making of a high scoring fixture that could have been, because the last time they played Wolves, Brighton won 4-1, and the time after that it was a 6-0 win. So I went down there myself, told my friend, you should come down, it's going to be a high scoring game, and it ended up being a 0-0 ball draw. But saying that, I think that Brighton did have a couple of chances. Buonanotte, especially in the first half, it was a cleared off the line sort of header that just wasn't meant to be a sort of split decision chance, that maybe if he did kick the ball instead of headering it, it could have been 1-0 to Brighton in the first half, and we could be talking about a completely different game here. But like Sam said, we're missing so much attacking threat at the moment through injuries and also international duty. So for Brighton to have kept a clean sheet and managed to kind of withhold Wolves, because they did end up getting a few real good chances here and there in the game, there was a positive in that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Wolves they're quite an underrated team at the moment. I think they're a very good team, and the way Gary O'Neill sets his team, even his Bournemouth teams, I think they're always quite good as well. So yeah, it was frustrating. But are you concerned though, Sam, that they can't create these, that they're unable to create these chances? And what do you think about that?
I wouldn't say it's a cause for concern. I think I'd be more concerned if they had everyone fit and firing and they were on the pitch and they couldn't do it. I think the fact they had such key players out, there's a fair excuse, I think, for not being able to. I think João Pedro was kind of everywhere on the pitch yesterday, dropping into deeper positions, and you found him in the left wing position, and it was almost like he was filling in for all those injured players himself at some point. So I think he did work really hard. And there was one moment towards the end of the game when he just delayed the shot, and he felt like he could have got a shot away earlier, and that was a little bit frustrating. But I felt quite a few of the players were guilty of that, almost trying to play the perfect pass and not just put your foot through it and hope for a deflection, and that's all that was missing really yesterday. I think, as Henry said, that the closest they came was in the first half was with Facundo Buonanotte. I feel like he went with his head in the moment, but in hindsight, he probably would have wished he just put his foot through it, really. But it's easy to say that in hindsight. And in the second half, Jack Hinchelwood, right at the beginning, had a cross that was diverted onto Max Kilman's own post. It was nearly an own goal. But those two moments are really the closest Brighton came, despite all of their possession. So yeah, definitely a frustrating one on the night, but not one that I think will be a long-term problem as players start to return. Yeah.
What have they got right defensively, Sam? They've two clean sheets now, one against West Ham and then against Wolves. What's changed, do you think?
De Zerbi was actually asked the same question. He said it's fine margins, really. I think they're playing in a very similar way. I think because when you look at the season as a whole, defensively, they've often been really solid. And you look at Lewis Dunk and Jan-Paul Van Hecke as prime examples. They've rarely put a performance below an 8 out of 10 all season. And yet sometimes they can concede a few goals through no fault of their own. It could be an unlucky bounce or a superb strike. And there's often been that in games that Brighton are leading by a few goals and they've just conceded for a lack of concentration at the end. And that's definitely been a problem. But I think on the whole, Brighton have defended, or their defenders have played really well all season, and they have been unlucky. I think now they're just starting to get their reward for how brilliant they have been, especially those two players I mentioned, Lewis Dunk and Jan-Paul Van Hecke. And Jan-Paul Van Hecke in particular has really come on leaps and bounds. I think yesterday you can just see how much confidence he's playing with it when he gets the ball. He's just so composed on the ball, starting attacks. And then when it comes to defending, he's so strong. He really gave Cunha a really tough time last night. And you favour him in every one-on-one battle, really. And obviously Lewis Dunk goes without saying that you can say the same thing, so strong in the air, so composed on the ball, bringing out the ball and starting attacks. And they're two quality players, really. And I'm pleased that they're being rewarded now with two back-to-back clean sheets.
Yeah. For me, Van Hecke, he's been sort of the biggest positive of the season. I think the way he's played, he must be pretty close to a Dutch call-up. You'd have thought, Henry. Do you think?
Yeah,
I think so. I think the quality he's shown for his kind of talent at such a young age, it just is another credit to Brighton and how they run their operation there. And it's weird to think that he's just yet another gem that we've been able to kind of hone and craft and just become, as Sam said, so confident, comfortable, and clearly playing the De Zerbi way for Brighton and Hove Albion.
No, it's really good news. At the start of the season, I thought he would be, one of the players that may be sort of in and around the squad, but and Adam Webster might come back. But Van Hecke's really made it his own. But one of the quotes that stood out after the match, De Zerbi said after the game that they're targeting a 10th place finish, which may have surprised a few fans who had sort of higher expectations this season. What do you think of that, Henry? Do you think 10th is a fair target, or?
Well, I think personally, most Brighton fans in an ideal world would like to see Brighton compete in Europe next season. And that wouldn't have to be in the Europa League. That could be in the Conference League. And the position we're in now, 7th place in front of Man United after that draw, looks to me like the realistic, but also, ideal way and position that we could get. I think most Brighton fans would like to see us consistently in Europe, and if we're able to do that, and we're able to focus not just on in the knockout rounds at the moment that we'll be in, and also kind of get ourselves in the Premier League, and get some of those players back from injury, then we've got every chance of doing that, I think. One thing that Sam and I kind of spoke about just before we started this was the fact that potentially De Zerbi's sort of getting a less media attention on his players. I think that can be important, especially with how much has been on them and the pressure that they may feel due to the fact that there are so many injuries, and players, we've said throughout the whole season, have had to step up. If you look at Hinchelwood, the confidence that he played with yesterday, I think he played really, really well, and he was one of the players in our team that were most likely to create that attacking chance that could have got us the goal and could have got us the 3 points in the end, but it wasn't meant to be on the night. So for me, I think that's quite a tactical and well thought out response there from De Zerbi. But if you're looking at it from a Brighton fan that takes it quite literally, perhaps, I think that they wouldn't be too disappointed with a 10th place finish. But at the same time, I think they would be looking to get into those Europa League or even Europa Conference League positions if possible.
Yeah. I think I do agree with that, Sam, because I thought last season he was speaking about when they were going for the Champions League. He said, that is definitely our, we're going for the top 4 this season. That is our target. And it's quite a contrast, isn't it, what he said yesterday compared to how he responded to those type of questions last season.
Yeah, no, I agree with what Henry said and what you said there, really. It's I feel it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors, perhaps, or just, as Henry said, trying to take the pressure off them a little bit because the expectations are so high. I think maybe he's just trying to quell that a little bit. I think obviously with the amount of players they've had on available, to say they could compete for the Champions League, for example, would probably be unrealistic. So I think he's just trying to contain those expectations when you consider how many kind of problems they've had in terms of injuries and players being away, especially this month as well. So, but I think when these players do start to come back and they've got kind of a fresh players that are fit and firing and able to play, I think that Brighton can definitely push for those European spots. And I think De Zerbi will expect that of them behind closed doors. I think he really will be pushing to achieve as a high position as they can. But in public, I think he's just trying to get the fans to appreciate the context of the situation, and if they do finish 10th, it wouldn't be a failure of a season.
Yeah. I think so. I think there'll be a different message behind closed doors to what's going out. De Zerbi's just not the sort of person who's going to settle for 10th, is he? You wouldn't have thought so. But yeah, well, we're just going to go for a quick break, and then we'll be discussing all things FA Cup. So Brighton now face a trip to Sheffield United in the FA Cup. You're going up to Bramall Lane for that one, Sam. Should be a good occasion. They're showing a bit of form actually now, Sheffield United, aren't they? They came back against West Ham in the league last time out. What kind of game are you expecting?
As you say, a tough game. I think they'll definitely be buoyed by that draw at West Ham. It was a last gasp penalty that sealed the point. I think it's obviously a little bit controversial as well because I think right after, I think West Ham should have had a blatant penalty, so they might also be counting their blessings a little bit there. But there's definitely signs of improvement from Sheffield United under Chris Wilder, 100%. And you just wonder how seriously or how important the FA Cup will be, considering they are still sitting rock bottom of the Premier League. You think that will be the priority, keeping everyone fit for that and doing everything they physically can to stay in the league. Although the FA Cup could be a way of giving fans something to cheer about. So it's I suppose it's a bit of a double-edged sword in that sense, and they'll definitely be going out to win the game. And it's not a foregone conclusion that Brighton will just go there and easily win. I don't see that at all. But I expect Brighton to come away with a victory. And I think they obviously have to be wary of Sheffield United and the fact they have scored quite a few goals. I think they've scored I think 8 goals in the last 4 games. So they definitely are able to find the net. I think they've just signed Ben Brereton Diaz, who scored on his Premier League debut against West Ham. Yeah, he's a good little player. I think Brighton were actually linked with him a couple of years ago, so they definitely know what he can do. So they've done their homework on him for sure. And yeah, I think it'll be a tough game, but one that I expect Brighton to come through and win.
Yeah, I think McAtee always looks good as well. Sheffield United, he's a good looking player as well. So yeah, it will be a tough one. Do you agree, Henry? Do you think it's going to be a tough one? And after coming so close in the FA Cup semi-final last season when they knocked out on penalties to Man United, do you think Brighton will be sort of priority, really going for a good FA Cup run this year?
Well, I think that Brighton's main priority should lie, in my opinion, on the Europa League and doing all they can to get as far as that in that competition as possible. But like you were saying, Derren, I think that the heartbreak of the semi-final and watching Solly March blast it over the bar.
It was painful. Yeah.
It was painful, and it was a shame for the lad. It really was a shame. I think that for Brighton, this will be a game that we should win. I think we should be doing it comfortably if we had all of our players available, fit and ready to go. But that's not the case, and we've known that. So for me, I think, as Sam was saying, this will be a tough fixture for us. And I think, I don't want to jinx it, but I think there'll be quite a few goals. I do really think there'll be quite a few goals. I think that Sheffield United could score early, and that will put us on the back foot and kind of force us to get a performance and get the result that we need.
Yeah, well, if the run of form's anything to go by, they obviously beat Spurs 4-2, drew 0-0 at West Ham, then beat Stoke 4-2, and then drew 0-0 again. So hopefully, if it follows the same pattern, we can see another 6-goal thriller at Bramall Lane. But I think Brighton will be taking it seriously. I think we saw from the lineup that De Zerbi put out against Stoke that he is really taking this competition seriously, and probably just wants to go one better after that heartbreak in the semi-final last year. But De Zerbi will be going 100% to get the win.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, and it's I've been to Bramall Lane a couple of times. It's always a good atmosphere up there as well, so it should be a good one to go to. And then swiftly after that, next week, Brighton are back in Premier League action at Luton Town. How important is that to get back to winning ways, Sam, in the league and really, try and sort of tackle those top 6 spots?
Yeah, really important to get back to winning ways after a couple of draws in the league. They wouldn't want that to be a trend that starts creeping in. And I think it's going to be another really tough game. I think Luton are again showing some good form, showing some signs they could stay in the league. Rob Edwards has done a really good job, and they're actually one of the most exciting teams to watch in the league. I think they really do play some nice football and really attacking football. There was a game recently against Chelsea where it was one of the games of the season for me, where Chelsea it looked like they had the game won, and out of nowhere Luton it was just chance after chance, and I think they could have scored about 6 goals on another day with the chances they had. And I think Brighton will have to be wary of that and really, really stand firm against the pressure. I think from players like Tahith Chong, who's really lively, Morris up front, same with Adebayo. Some really tough, some good attacking talent really that can cause problems for Brighton. And I think Lewis Duncan and Van Hecke will be really important to stand up tall against that. And I have full faith that they will do it. And it's just about being clinical when Brighton have the chances, because they definitely will have chances against this Luton team. They're not the most strong defensively, so I think Brighton just need to take their chances when they come around and just make sure they're solid defensively as they have been the last couple of games.
Yeah. I've seen Brighton Luton a couple of times this season, Henry. Everything seems to go through Ross Barkley, doesn't it? He's been brilliant this season for them. What sort of problems do you think that they'll pose?
Well, as Sam was saying, they're quite a relentless team, and they do play some exciting football at times when they are on the back foot and it looks like they're down and out. They have this sort of grit and determination that runs through their club, and has got them into the Premier League in the first place, I think. So it's always an interesting game when you're playing Luton Town. And I think Brighton will be able to kind of quell and kind of dispossess them when they're in attacking areas and create chances themselves. They're 18th at the moment with a game in hand against Everton, who are sit one place above them. So as Sam was saying again, it looks like they could find themselves out of the relegation zone, and it would be interesting to see how they how they do against Brighton, especially in the fact that their last game was a 2-1 win against League One Bolton in the FA Cup. So sometimes their form does dip, and we do know that. But I do feel like this will be a game that Brighton hopefully can ease themselves past and cause no trouble for them, get them back to winning ways.
Yeah, you mentioned Ross Barkley as well, and yeah, he's been brilliant for Luton this season, and definitely one for Brighton to watch out for. And it's a real second win really for him, because obviously we know his quality, and he did go very quiet for a couple of years, but now he's fully back to his best and really enjoying his football again. And some of the football and bits of skill we see from him is top quality. So yeah, definitely one for Brighton to keep an eye on. Make sure they handle him.
Yeah, if he was doing that for one of the top teams, playing that way, there would be calls for him to be in England squad, wouldn't there, for the Euros? I think he's playing that well at the moment. But,
100%.
Yeah, one to watch out for Brighton. But yeah, as we go forward, we're sort of the last week of the January transfer window. We've got about another week left to go. De Zerbi was asked again after the Wolves game about transfers, and he just said, "Oh, it's not my business. Basically, it's down to the club. I just organise the players they've got." They've got Valentin Barco, who's been signed for about 8 million. But any more news on a transfer front, Sam?
Not too much news, really. I think there's been one report from RMC sports journalist Fabrice Hawkins that Brighton have started talks with Amin Adli. He's a 23-year-old forward for Bayer Leverkusen, and it's been reported that he would consider a move to the Premier League. And Roberto De Zerbi is said to be an admirer of the French forward. But it is understood that Leverkusen would demand a significant transfer fee because of Moussa Diaby's recent transfer to Aston Villa. So I think that would be a tough one to get over the line. And you mentioned De Zerbi's comments there. He kind of hinted a little bit like he would like someone to come in. He obviously wouldn't want to say that outright. And he obviously said, "It's not for me to answer, it's for the club," kind of thing. So I think he told George Breach to ask the club, almost saying, yeah, he kind of wants it, but it's not up to him.
It was a sort of a message to the club, wasn't it? Really?
It was a little bit.
I need some more players. Yeah.
And there's been some calls from fans for Tony Bloom to put his hand in his pocket and give some money to spend, I guess. But it's it's a difficult one to call, and I think Brighton could do with some reinforcements with the number of competition, number of games coming up for the rest of the season. But I'm quite surprised actually that they didn't go in for Calvin Phillips. It's been reported that West Ham have agreed a loan deal with the midfielder, and I think he could have been a real asset to Brighton on just a loan deal to come in, add a bit of backup into the midfield. Obviously, they're still struggling to replace the qualities of Moises Caicedo, and I think he could have been a temporary stopgap. So maybe they did think about it and decided against it, but I think he would have been a good sign, and I think he will be good for West Ham.
Yeah, I agree. I think they wanted quite a hefty loan fee, didn't they? Man City. I think it was about 7 million for 6 months or something. So it's quite a fee for a loan. But yeah, well, hopefully there's still a bit more time, so Brighton may bolster it. Do you think would you like to see some more players come in, Henry, or would you think with the injured players coming back that's enough?
I think that it would be nice to get some more attacking options, just from the sheer fact that we're in a very important season where we could capitalise on the fact that we're in the knockout rounds of the Europa League, and every game that we can get through in that is just putting ourselves more and more on the map to attract players in the future, and also just increase the credibility and quality of how our club is and looks to the rest of the world. So I feel like, although I know for a fact, and most Brighton fans know, that Tony Bloom doesn't normally like to spend big in January, that if we were to get a French forward from Bayer Leverkusen per se, that maybe a significant fee and a transfer like that might be needed. A sort of unexpected transfer in quite an unexpected season for Brighton and Hove Albion competing in Europe.
Yeah. Interesting one to watch out for. And like I say, about 7 more days of the window to go. Just onto the score predictions. We've got obviously Brighton are at Sheffield United this Saturday. Sam, what's your hopes, thoughts, and expectations for that one?
I'm hoping for some goals to return. So I'm going to say 3-1 to Brighton.
3-1 to Brighton. Henry, would you go along with that?
Well, the last time I did, I jinxed it. So I think it will be slightly less. I think it will either be a 1-1 or 2-1 to Brighton. Brighton getting it at right at the death of the game.
Yeah. I think it's going to be tight, actually. I think it's going to be very a tough old game. I'm going to go for 1-0 as well, I think, for Brighton. And then they move swiftly on to Luton Town after that one. Again, another tricky away fixture. What do you think, Sam? Is that a win on the cards? Or?
Yeah, a real tough one to predict, that one. I think if Brighton find their goal scoring boots, I think they could get the win. But if it's anything like it was against Wolves, where they're struggling to create those chances, I think Luton could make them pay. So it really could go either way. But I think Brighton, at their best, playing well, I think they should get the job done. I'll say a 2-1 win.
2-1 win. Henry, what do you think to that one?
I think it'll be a 2-2 draw against Luton.
Yeah.
I think that we'll end up scoring early, and I think that we might get caught on the break because of the players that they have in attack. And I think that with the form we're in at the moment, obviously I'd love to see us get the win, but I think a 2-2 draw might be the result on the night.
Yeah. No, they're a handful, aren't they, Luton? They've played against some of the tough teams, and really caused them problems. But I think Brighton would do that one. I've got a feeling for Evan Ferguson for that game. I think he might get a couple of goals. So we shall see. Anyway, you can catch up with all the latest sports news, covering everything we've spoken about today at sussexworld.co.uk, and you can watch more excellent videos on Shots TV and Free For You channel 276. So thank you guys, and thanks for joining us, and see you next time.